how to start and sustain meaningful employment. My name is Bailey Stevens-Johns, and I'm the student president of the Engineering Club. One of our goals this year was to provide our members with opportunities for personal and professional development. So we've accomplished this goal by teaming up with Career Services to bring you a series of career readiness events throughout the month of April. Many of our student leaders are also here today. If you see on the screen, Colin Myers is our vice president. Kiki Carmona is our treasurer. Tony Pearl, or Antonia Pearl, is our SGA representative. And also, I would be remiss to leave out our faculty advisor, Dr. David Drozdoff, who allows all of this to be possible. If you're interested in joining Engineering Club, please follow us on Presence and to stay informed about the upcoming meetings that we have, or email Dr. Drozdoff to be included in the email list. We'll be sure to provide that information for you so that you have his email. Don't forget that we have additional Energize Your Career events happening next week. The resume and interview preparation for future engineers is on Monday at 2 p.m. and the online personal branding and social media do's and don'ts will be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. It's not too late to register. Career Services will include the registration link in the chat if you're interested. And then if you think of any questions throughout the presentation today, again, please remain muted and type your questions into the chat. We'll get to as many as we can. And if we have time at the end, we'll also open it up where you might be able to ask your questions live through audio. And then finally, toward the end of the event, we'll post a link in the chat to take a survey for you to be entered into a $25 JCPenney gift card. This was made possible by Career Services. So thank you to Career Services for your involvement and allowing this event to take place today. To get things started, I want to say a very big thank you to our panelists for taking time out of your day and also investing in the lives of community college students. I also want to say thank you to our student treasurer, Kiki Carmona, for moderating the event. Please welcome Brandon Weber. Brandon Weber is a planning and engineering supervisor for American Electric Power in the Protection and Control Engineering SCADA team. He is originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, and holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. He is currently pursuing his Master's of Business Administration with the Organizational Leadership focus from Oklahoma Wesleyan University. Braden started his career as a two-term COOP intern before becoming a full-time employee in 2013. Braden currently serves as president for the nonprofit organization Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries. He also serves as the Big Brothers Big Sisters on the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Oklahoma Tulsa Resource Board, the Engineering Early Career Advisory Council and the University of Arkansas and the Employee Advisory Board for Tennessee State University. Mr. Weber loves serving his community as a regular volunteer at the Community Food Bank of Eastern Oklahoma and has been mentoring as a big brother for the Big Brother Big Sister of Oklahoma organization for over 7 years. Thank you for being here today, Brandon. Up next, I would also like to welcome Ariel Leff. Ariel Leff has an Associate of Arts degree from the Tulsa Community College and graduated from Oklahoma State University in 2014 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering. Outside of coursework, he was active in a number of clubs, notably Engineers Without Borders, through which he did research projects focusing on air and water quality, and got to travel to Guatemala and Sierra Leone. After graduation, Ariel was hired as a line engineer at Aon, a Tulsa-based company which manufactures commercial HVAC equipment, and is currently working as a mechanical design engineer in this role. Ariel works on special projects and is told about products the company would like to sell and thinks of ways to improve current products. And then he must figure out how to make that happen. This process includes creating 3D CAD models, creating the process by which the different components are fabricated and organized, working with other manufacturers to acquire components which cannot be made in-house, working with drafters to get drawings so that the line engineers know how the assembly goes together, and then assisting the line when questions come up. Ariel really loves his role as a design engineer because he gets to use both his creative side and his analytical side in solving engineering challenges. Thank you, Ariel, for being here with us today. Up next, I would like to welcome Ed Delaporte. Ed Delaporte earned a Bachelor of Science at Cardinal Stritch University in Management and earned a Master of Science in Communication Systems and Information Technology at Northwestern University. Ed is driven to provide excellent leadership by providing tools, support, encouragement, direction, humor, empathy, engagement, and vision for technologists. In his current position, he leads and supports a team of approximately 300 engineers and technicians from multiple disciplines as the Vice President of Engineering at Flight Safety International, a professional aviation training company and supplier of flight simulators, visual systems, and displays to commercial, government, and military organizations. Thank you, Ed, so much for being here with us today. And finally, I would like to welcome Sundaresh S. Harigu. Dr. Harigu is a Regents Professor and head of the School of Industrial Engineering and Management at Oklahoma State University, where he holds the Donald and Kathy Humphreys Chair. Previously, he was the Duthie Chair in Engineering Logistics and Director of the Logistics and Distribution Institute at the University of Louisville. He has also served as a professor of Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, assistant professor in the State University of New York, Buffalo, Technical University of Eindhoven, the Netherlands, University of, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, Twente, the Netherlands, and IBM's Thomas J. Watson Research Center in Yorktown Heights, New York. He is the author of the 4th edition of Facilities Design and has authored or co-authored over 200 articles. He has served as principal investigator or co-investigator of research projects totaling over 20 million funded by federal agencies such as the Department of Homeland Security, National Science Foundation, Defense Logistics Agency, and private companies such as General Electric. Dr. Harigu is a fellow of the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers. He has received IISE's David F. Baker Distinguished Research Award and the Award for Technical Innovation in Industrial Engineering, both considered prestigious awards by the National Academies of Engineering, Medicine, and Science. He has also received the Reed Apple Lifetime Achievement Award from the Material Handling Institute. Dr. Harigu, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here with us today. And now, Kiki, if you would like to get things started.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. So I'm going to start off with an introduction question I would like for all of our panelists to answer. We'll start off with you, Mr. Delaporte. What are the key skills or qualities that make an engineer successful?
So I made some notes earlier. It kind of boils down to 2 categories. One is hard skills, right? I need people who are creative, who can do problem solving, have strong math skills, mechanical aptitude, curiosity. I also need folks that have people skills, which is something we kind of make fun of in engineering. But I need them to have emotional maturity, good communication skills, and I like folks that are hungry and engaged, anxious to get things done, take on new tasks.
Okay, awesome. All right, and Mr. Leff, the same question for you. What are the key skills or qualities that make an engineer successful?
1 second. There we go. Sorry, forgive me. I work in an open office with 80 people, so in order to get a little quiet, I stepped out to my car, but then I'm in the parking lot at a manufacturing plant, so it's only a little bit quieter. Definitely, I would say like that was already a great answer. It's difficult to add, but I would say curiosity is a really great one. I've always been really curious about how things work, which is something that led me to always be trying to figure things out. And I think the fact that I've always been so interested in how things go together and how processes are done really guided me into what I do now. But definitely, yeah, just being very committed. And one thing that is really important in my field, there are occasionally times when someone will tell you exactly what to do, but typically it's really left up to the individual. I can, it's really up to me to find projects to get involved in. So in a typical day, you know, what I do is up to me. So it's really important for an engineer to be someone who's very motivated, and doesn't, you know, doesn't, you know, good at coming up with their own tasks and keeping themselves on track, and knowing where to focus your energies and your time, and being able to really balance really complicated tasks without a clear, a sort of a clear, being able to develop your own roadmap, I guess I could say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weber, the question now for you. What are the key skills or qualities that make an engineer successful?
Sure. So there were a lot of great answers before me, and I wanted to kind of add on to those. So I love talking about the hard skills and the soft skills, as well as just having that curiosity that was mentioned earlier as well. Just to add some more is to stay informed, make sure that you're collaborative. So with the engineering organization, sometimes you're working on individual projects and it's so easy to keep your head down and just be in a bubble. But what you'll realize is that it takes a team to be successful, and you have to own your role, but also when all the pieces collaborate, that's when you see the growth, and that's when you're able to hit organizational success. The other thing that I had on here is to have a questioning attitude. Do not go in that you know everything about a project. Have the willingness to learn. There's going to be situations where you're not the subject matter expert, but if you go in with the willingness to learn and that questioning attitude, that's when you're able to grow and learn as an engineer. So thank you.
Thank you. And then last but certainly not least, Dr. Haragu, this question for you. What are the key skills or qualities that make an engineer successful?
Yeah, a number of the points were already mentioned, but to me, I think motivation would be the key. How motivated are you to work on a problem? But it's also passion. You know, how passionate are you about engineering? Now, there are some tasks that you're passionate about, some that you're not. So you really need to figure out what you're most passionate about and just follow that. I also think that, you know, the desire to network would be important. Do as much networking as possible. You know, when we hire students into the industrial engineering program, you know, they're not sure whether they want to come to industrial engineering, mechanical, or some other discipline. And I'm always mention that if you got the analytical skills and you like working with people, then you really need to check us out. So I think that's true for almost any profession. One last word, I'll you know, leave with this thought for this question. My dad would always say, work with reason and not excuses. So as an engineer, if you're given a challenge, you can come up with 1,000 excuses why you couldn't meet it, right? But you could not find one good reason. So, you know, I think the grit, wanting to get things done, that attitude will take you far, I think.
Okay. Thank you so much. Those are all such wonderful answers. And it was nice to hear from engineers, like what is it that everyone's been pretty much looking for. So now we're going to go ahead and ask you guys individual questions, starting with Mr. Weber. Our question for you is, what was the biggest challenge you have faced in your career or getting to where you are today?
Sure, and that's a great question. So with the career, there's always ups and downs. One of the biggest things that I had to work on is just work-life balance. Once you get into your career, you're going to have your head down, trying to do the work, learning your job. When you are noticed, sometimes you're going to be involved in extracurricular activities or special initiatives, which adds to your plate of responsibilities. So you need to be able to prioritize your work, but also prioritize your family. So the older you get, you'll find that family is most important, and it's so easy to be consumed by your work that you lose sight of that. So for me, one of the biggest challenges is making sure that I prioritize my work, give 100% to every project that I'm assigned to, special initiative, but also having that balance where I know when to cut it off and to have family time, because that is also essential as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do feel like that's a challenge that everyone here faces, especially as engineers, try and find time to, well, have time for yourself pretty much and not focus everything on your career. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Mr. Leff. Your question is, what challenges do you face in your role as a mechanical design engineer? I think you're.
Sorry. Yeah, work-life balance that Brandon mentioned. And I'm going to say time management is really, really critical for me. I've got always have multiple projects that I'm juggling, and I'm typically working with multiple different companies. And each company that I'm working with is providing materials for different steps of a process. And so I need to be really active in keeping track of when everything is going to fall in place. And I often have very challenging deadlines to meet when design work needs to be completed and then samples need to be produced or acquired. And I'm working with multiple different manufacturing lines. So once materials arrive on site, then I need to make sure that there's staff ready to do assembly. And so there is just a lot of work in making sure that everything is ready on time. And then it takes a lot of commitment to really stay on top of everything. So you have to constantly be managing all of these, sort of juggling all of these different aspects of the different projects. And so, yeah, it's a big challenge, but it also means that every day is a little bit different. And so I don't ever, it's not a problem to ever get bored, because I'm always really kept on my toes.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And sorry about that alarm. All right, so next up we have Mr. Delaporte. How would you characterize an average day, if there's such thing as an average day?
It's interesting because I'm in leadership, and my days are probably quite a bit different from an engineer's days. I think the thing we have in common is many times shoot the closest alligator, right? I'm sure Ariel goes through it, Brandon goes through it. What's the biggest threat? What needs to be done now? Let's take care of that and then move on. And for me, the challenge as a leader is to lead with intent and lead strategically and take care of my team. That's who I am. I take care of technical people. That's the way I'm wired. That's what I've done for decades. And they're special. They're important. They add value to the company like nobody else does. And they're remarkable. And I'm blessed to be around them. I'm grateful to be around them. And it's up to me to do my best for them. So my day is full of interruptions. My day is full of spending time with people and developing relationships and leading people, pulling the gold out of people. That's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful answer. And Dr. Harraguth, this question is going to be for you. Will you tell us more about what you do in your role as the head of School of Industrial Engineering and Management?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Sure. Good question. So my job, the nature of my job might be different from the other panelists, but the challenges are probably as bad, if not worse, on a day-to-day basis. But my job is pretty varied. I love this job partly because of that, because I'm not doing the same thing over and over. So I may have to worry about strategic things, looking out for the department for the next 5, 10 or more years. But then I also am responsible for operational things like class scheduling or myself going into teaching. Oftentimes I come into work thinking that this is what I want to do, but then there's something else that takes over half or 3/4 of your day that you didn't anticipate. So you have to leave time for that. And a lot of my day goes in just meetings And any work that I need to do, I usually get up very early in the morning to get it done, or do it late in the night, because once you come to work, as Ed and others might agree, that if you're in a leadership position, then you got more of your time for others and less for yourself during the day. The other things that I do as a head is I'm also very active in my professional society. They don't pay me a salary, but we do it for the love of our profession. And a lot of volunteer things that we do, like reviewing papers, I'm actually the head of the Council of Industrial Engineering academic department heads in the United States. So that's, I have to plan for 2 meetings for them. So there are a lot of varied and variety of things that I do, but that's, I love that. That's what pumps up my adrenaline, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that was our first round of questions. I'd also like to remind the people that are here that you can ask questions in the group chat or in the little chat room if you'd like. So that way, if we have enough time, we can go ahead and get those answers too. So for our second round of questions, we're going to go back around. So Mr. Weber, your question is, what prompted you to pursue your MBA? And what are your plans after completing your degree?
Sure, another great question. So for me, the MBA was always a goal to obtain. Originally, when I was in college, I wanted to get an advanced degree and I aspired to be a part of leadership. I did not go into the MBA right after I graduated. I wanted to get some experience under my belt, so be an individual contributor. And then I found myself in a leadership position. So now that I'm in leadership and going through this MBA, the biggest thing that I wanted to get out of it is how to be an effective leader for my organization. So understanding my leadership style, understanding how to empower others, about emotional intelligence, self-awareness are just a few things that I wanted to better myself. I believe in continuous learning as well as self-improvement. So each year I try to find something different to do, to grow, and to learn a different skill that I can have in my toolbox, no matter when I need to use it. So the MBA is just one of those skills. That's probably the end of my educational journey, but at the end of the day, learning never stops. So I've been learning from other leaders as well as just from experiences and leading outside of my company. So trying to get that total package, if you will. And that's what the MBA has done for me. I want to continue to grow, continue to excel in my company. The MBA does not guarantee that, but I want to make sure is when I do get that opportunity that I'm ready for it. So that's how the MBA has played within my career so far. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a wonderful answer. All right. Now, Mr. Left, this one's for you. What projects are you currently working on, and how do you collaborate with others on the team when you're handling a big project?
I'm working on actually a few projects. One, try to think where to even start. The primary project that I've been working on, I've been doing for about a year and a half, and it's a big issue in our products is how to move air efficiently. And so I guess I also have to figure out how much can I actually say in an ongoing project. But basically it's a structural challenge where I have a number of motors which are spinning fans, and the fans are very large and vibration's an issue. And so I had to come up with a way to support those motors so that they could function. But we wanted to come up with an innovative way to do that. And the bulk of our products are designed from punched and bent sheet metal parts, and we're able to make a lot of really complicated and really amazing assemblies, just using folded sheet metal pieces. So it's a little bit like origami, where you have in mind a three-dimensional shape you want to create, and then you look at a piece of flat sheet metal and you think, how can I cut and bend this piece of sheet metal in order to get the shape that I want. But then in our case, it's not just a matter of getting the shape that I need, because I'm supporting motors that weigh 350 pounds each, which are spinning fans that weigh 90 pounds each. And so we have some pretty significant forces that we're dealing with. And then there's also going to be a pressure differential, because as that fan is pulling the air, it's creating that differential of pressure, which is what actually moves the air. And so my particular part of this project is to actually design the structural pieces which support these motors. And then I'm working directly hand in hand with another engineer who does something called finite element analysis and computational fluid dynamics. So he's able to take the 3D models that I create and then run them through simulations to make an engineering guess of how they'll perform in different conditions that we need them to perform in. And he's able to provide me information on how those models might perform in the real world. And then based on those models, then assuming that we meet the standards that we're needing from the project, then I can proceed on to the next step of the project. But then assuming that there's a failure that occurs, he's able to give me an estimation of what those points of failures might be. And so then I go back to the drawing board with the design and make adjustments. And the current project that I've been working on, I mentioned I've been working on for about 1.5 years, and we've got I think six to 8 different motors that we're looking at, and it's a wide variety of different options that we want to be able to provide to our customer. But that means that every single potential option needs to be modeled and tested. And then there's an iterative design process. And so some of those different designs have been through several dozen iterations before finally getting a design accepted. And then at that point, then we build and test prototypes. One huge challenge that I had about 6 months ago is I had a full range of designs that had all passed. I'd completed the design, they'd passed FEA. We ordered parts, built prototypes, and then when we were in testing, we found an issue that nobody could have guessed, that there was actually a defect in one of the fans that we were using. And so this entire assembly, where I'd been working about 1 year at that point, we realized that the fan that we had designed all of these around, we had about a dozen different designs that had all been just extensively worked on. But it wasn't until we got to the prototype and testing phase that we found that the fan wasn't going to work for what we were needing. And then we had to go back to the drawing board and completely redesign every single one of the versions around a new fan. So that was an interesting and a challenge, and so now I'm about back at the same place where I was, where I have every single configuration that we need is now modeled in CAD and tested and passed FEA. And so now I'm working with suppliers to get the components that we need to build prototypes where we can retest. And hopefully this time around, it's better than the last time.
There we go. Okay, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All right, so next one's going to be for Mr. Delaporte. Your question is, what What are your expectations and what do you have for your current engineers? And what characteristics does your organization look for in potential new hires?
Yeah, that's a couple questions. For potential new hires, we obviously look for technical skills. We're essentially a software house. We build flight simulators, and the bill of material is 15,000 items on it, 30 miles of copper, 12,000 discrete connections. Then it gets complicated. Now we're talking software. We're shipping 7 million lines of code. So we look for basic technical competence. And when somebody comes in as a software engineer, we will quiz them and we give them a programming problem. And it's not so much that we want them to solve it. We want to see how they think. We want to see how they approach it. How tenacious are they? How do they pursue it? We want to see how they think. One of the things I've always looked for is a high degree of engagement, a hunger, a thirst for knowledge, and emotional maturity. One of the issues that happens with engineers, especially engineers that come out of great schools, is they spend the last 4 years of their college career being told they're geniuses, because they are. However, when you get out here, you're surrounded by other geniuses, and you got to back off the ego. That's a problem occasionally. So I'm looking for people who have the emotional maturity to go, yeah, I'm good. I'm an engineer. I'm confident, but I'm not probably the best ever. So I'm looking for those characteristics. And at my level, I get involved in very few of those calls, largely because I trust my managers to make their decisions. Right? I've delegated that. That's their team. They know what they have to deliver. They know what the expectations are. They have to build their teams to do that. I will intervene if there are issues. I will coach. I'll help solve problems. But generally speaking, my managers make their own calls. So what the expectations at my level of my team, the first thing I say to them is, tell me when I'm wrong. You don't make progress if everybody just says yes to the boss. I'll come up with an idea or a direction, and I'll say, okay, guys, what do you think? Where are we headed? And I wait for their input. I'm very collaborative. Now, there are times when you have to slash and burn and make quick decisions. Yes, I do that. But generally speaking, that's rare. I don't do that on a regular basis. I do it rarely. I also ask people to stay engaged. I try and keep people motivated. I try and encourage people. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm out of words. Sorry.
You're fine. That was a great answer. Thank you so much. So now, Dr. Haragu, this question is for you. What suggestions do you have for engineering students who are interested in conducting undergraduate research?
Great question again. Yeah, if you are interested in undergraduate research, what I would do is look for, first of all, you need to identify what areas you are interested in. You don't have to narrow or pigeonhole yourself into something very specific, but maybe you like, things that have to do with solar energy generation, or maybe mechanical design of parts, or maybe you want to look at systems as a whole. So whatever it is, just kind of define it broadly in your mind. And then what I would do is, everybody has a web page, including, all the schools that you're going after. Certainly ours is, IEM. I'm putting a plug for our web page, but it's iem.okstate.edu. And we typically list all our faculty and their research interests. So first find out what it is that you're interested in, and then go through the faculty pages to see what their interests are and see if there's a match. And then the second thing I would do is see if they have funding and from what sources. Because if they do have funding and there is a match in interests, they will actually pay you for, for your undergraduate research. In fact, many of our graduate students and some of our undergraduate students, they are on a scholarship. I tell them, hey, somebody else is paying for you to get your degree, right? Because most everything is paid for. All they have to do is just chip in a few things for monthly expenses or what have you. For our graduate students, I mean, the tuition is paid for and they get a healthy stipend while they're here. The undergraduate seat scholars, and Ariel might know this, having been at Oklahoma State, there are lots of scholarships that basically pay your tuition and put some money in your pocket. So yeah, I would say for undergraduate research, just find out what your passion is, what your interests are, and you can do simple Google searches, right? Whatever university you're looking at, just type that up and put in some keywords, and you'll be surprised how many good hits you will get just by doing that kind of search rather than directly go into a website.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the next questions are going to be for pretty much all of you guys. Any of you guys can answer if you'd like. So I guess we'll start with Mr. Weber, since we've been going in that order. What do you believe has helped you the most in getting to where you are today professionally?
Great question. The biggest thing is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So you're always, when in leadership, you're always going to be asked to give a impromptu presentation. For me, one of the biggest things that I had to overcome is I'm an introvert. So at first I didn't like to give presentations or public speaking, and this event I probably would have shied away from. But I had a personal development plan to grow in this area, and I put myself in uncomfortable situations. So I just wanted to give as many presentations as possible. So I reached out and got comfortable with that skill, and I continue to do so in that regard. So I would recommend everybody figure out what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and continue to improve each and every day. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to start in order to be great and to be better than you were yesterday. So
Can I follow up a comment there? I'm with you completely. That's excellent. One of the things I found over the years is I've got certain innate God-given strengths, and I know what they are. I know who I am. I know what I do. I surround myself with people that make up for my weaknesses. For a long time, I started to say, well, I'm weak here, I'm weak there. I'm going to push on those things and get better at those things. Yeah, I take my weaknesses and push as hard as I want, I'll be mediocre. But if I take my strengths and push on them, I'll be excellent. And that's been my approach, is let's be excellent at what we're best at. And then I fill in. I've got people around me that support me and do the things that I can't do. And I know I'm open about it. I know what I'm not good at. And my team supports that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Leff, Dr. Herge, do you feel like answering the question as well?
Sure, let me give it a shot. Yeah, I would say, make a goal for yourself, both short-term, intermediate term, and long-term goals. And one of the things that I do, like, for example, when we had a goal of being a top 20 department by 2020, we had the goal, and then we put it on a paperweight, and this belongs on everybody's, all of the faculty members' desks. So when they come to work, they look at it and say, this is the goal that we are working for. So similarly, you want to do something like that for yourself, right? Just ask yourself, what are the things that you naturally gravitate towards? That's kind of how you identify what your passion is. And given that you know the area that you are most interested in, ask yourself where you want to be in a few years' time. And the points that Ed and Brandon mentioned, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, complement your skill set with the that of others. I think working as a team, you can accomplish a lot. Lean on others. Don't hesitate to tell, to be forthright and say that these are the things you know, these are the things that you don't know. Don't be embarrassed to say that I, don't know about this and you want to learn. Because if you try to hide it and you, try to mask it, you'll never learn that topic ever, right? Instead, if you say, I do not know that, and then you try to learn that, you'll probably be better off. And Brandon already mentioned, every few years, I like to challenge myself and do something different. Now, it doesn't have to be related to work. It could be, let's say you never run and you say, I want to do a marathon, or you never, done a type of exercise, but you want to pick up yoga, or you want to get into reading, whatever it is, do something different every 5 years. That always rejuvenates you. And for me, I've moved around. I've had the good fortune of having lived in 5 countries, India, Canada, where I got my higher education, and then US, Netherlands, and Panama. Every time I moved, I found that, people say, oh, I might lose my friends, right? no, you never lose your friends. You actually make new ones every time you move. And you get out of your comfort zone, you learn something new, you become more uh, prosperous, but not just financially, from an intellectual point of view. You also learn a lot more new things, and you carry the experience that you had from before. So yeah, go ahead and challenge yourself, do something that's not in your comfort zone. Again, don't stretch into something that you really hate, right? That's not what I'm saying. There are areas that you probably like, but you never tried it. Go try it. Now, let me give it to Ariel.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely echo what Brandon said as a fellow introvert in a leadership role. There and maybe kind of adding to what everyone said about knowing your strengths, but also just encourage everyone not to be afraid of your weaknesses as well. Because I've always been really strong creatively. That's all of my free time is spent doing creative things if I can help it. But also I always had this feeling that I wanted to be an engineer, but I didn't really. I was just really scared because I was not good at math. I didn't do well at math at all in grade school. And then I actually started engineering school at OSU. I turned 30 the semester that I started. And when I took my first engineering math class, I hadn't been in a math class for nearly a decade. But it just took a lot of commitment. And the first math class that I took, I had taken algebra 10 years earlier, so I thought, okay, I'll do trig, and then I started trig, and I was like, whoa, I'm not ready for this. So I went and I did algebra again, and then I did trig, and then I did calc 1, and then when I got to calc 2, I was like, whoa, I'm not getting this. I took calc 1 again, and then calc 2, like the second time, made so much more sense than it did when I started the first time. And there were a few different points where I realized, or maybe I had that fear that I was in over my head, but I had that goal. And even if I would fail an exam, I felt like because of my creativity, because of my problem solving skills, because of how much I loved seeing the way that mechanical things work, and how much I loved designing mechanical things, I had this feeling that I would be a really good engineer. And the problem wasn't that I wasn't good enough. The problem was that the tests that I was taking and not doing well on just weren't reflecting what the capability that I knew I had if I just stuck with it. And engineering school was definitely one, due to how I struggled with math, and maybe not learning new mathematical concepts as quickly as some of my peers. That struggle was one of the biggest challenges I've ever overcome in my life. But I'm so proud that I did it. And now that I am an engineer, I'm happy to say I was right. Like even if I failed a lot of exams, I'm a really good engineer. I'm happy to say that, and really love what I do. And so I would encourage anyone. It doesn't even have to be engineering, but whatever it is, that if you've got something inside you, this is what you want to do. Having the commitment and the tenacity to stick with it, and happy to say also, like, the math now comes much more naturally to me, that by doing it all day, every day, for years and years and years, I changed the way that my mind works. And I still have that creative side, but I also, as I mentioned in my bio, I also have I was able to develop, through what I learned in engineering school, able to develop that mathematical skill and that analytical skill to compensate. And I think the fact that I have both of those, the sort of stereotypical left brain and right brain skills, makes me so much better at what I do than if I just had one or the other. Thank you all very much for having me. I just wanted to say that while I'm still on the line.
No, thank you so much for spending your time and allowing us to pick on your brain pretty much. Really appreciate it.
You're
So
welcome.
I would like to let everyone know, all of our guests, that we are actually open to some questions for you guys to have, for you guys to ask. Sorry about that. You can either go ahead and unmute yourself and say it, ask the question live, or you can put it in the chat and I can ask that question for you.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jarrett Woodard. Definitely appreciate everybody joining for the panel, and thank you to the engineering team for putting this together. This whole series has been very insightful, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. But to the panel, you guys mentioned soft skills fairly regularly, and that has been a recurring theme throughout this series. So just kind of curious, just from your perspectives, maybe some individual examples where you've had to help somebody or intervene and direct somebody to develop soft skills, and specifically, what did they need to develop?
Well, I'll jump in. So there's an engineering team as big as the one I have. I've got nearly 400 now. I picked up some more responsibility. I'm going to have folks that are brilliant, but don't have strong people skills. And that's Brandon mentioned tolerating dissonance. Yeah, I tolerate that dissonance because these are the go-to guys when we're doing flight dynamics and aerospace stuff, the math. And that's okay, as long as it doesn't negatively affect people around them and it doesn't turn into an organizational issue. Where I've had to coach people is in the management team. I hold the managers to a higher accountability, a higher level of responsibility. I'm sure Brandon feels it all the time, and Ariel does too. When you're in, I'm absolutely sure Dr. Hergu does, but you're accountable for more things. You set a different example. You set the tone. When you walk into the room, people look at you and go, "What's the boss thinking? What's the mood for the day?" They will actually read you when you walk in. So it's so important to stay positive. It's so important to be engaged in meetings. It's so important to give people undivided attention and listen. Well, these are all things that I coach my team to do, especially at the management leadership level. Again, I can put up with some dissonance in the engineering side. I've had brilliant engineers that were doing the physics of light kind of visual stuff. I wouldn't introduce to my mom. They were just not socially acceptable. Occasionally I get them to wear a clean t-shirt, but the code was great. So there was some dissonance there that I let go. But as you move up through the management ranks and the leadership, the standard's higher.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ed. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ed. And just kind of to piggyback on it, your direct reports are going to look to you for the example for the culture. So you have to be mindful of your actions and your behaviors. Even when nobody's looking, you need to show honesty, integrity, but you also need to be able to be the example that you want to see amongst your team. So working with engineers, you have a lot of different backgrounds, personalities, and different cultures. So for some people, something that you don't deem as acceptable might be acceptable for their culture. So just making sure that you have the rules of engagement and what you're trying to structure. But the biggest thing that I have found amongst my team is those communication skills, as Ed alluded to. So we are technical experts as engineers. We like to solve problems utilizing math and science. But whenever you're trying to have a conversation about, hey, what are you doing today? Or what are you doing this weekend? It seems to be a disconnect, especially with our engineers. So if you are aspiring to be a part of leadership, being able to have those people skills will go a tremendous way. So understanding your actions and behaviors, but also the people skills are some of the soft skills that you want to develop.
Yeah, I think we mentioned a lot of these things before. So in addition to what was not what Brandon said, I think that was new, but you heard over the course of this hour that a lot of skills that you need to be successful. As engineers, you may have great. I'll mention a couple that I don't think we've touched upon yet. But as engineers, you got a lot of ideas, right? Great ideas. It's not enough if you have great ideas or great solutions. You need to be able to market them to others. So I find, in my job, we've got a great program, we've got great things that are going on, research and faculty and so on. But I need to actively market that because nobody, if I don't do that, nobody else knows. And just piggybacking what Brandon said, if you, as you, work up the chain on the leadership ladder, the power of persuasion becomes more and more important. You can't, even in a private company, of course, I work for a university, public university. I don't have too many tools that will allow me to, control people's behavior. But the one I use often is the power of persuasion. So making kind of people see that, this is an end state that we all would be better off if you were to pursue that. And then you put, then you're on autopilot, right? You don't really need to monitor anyone. Sometimes you need to get out of the way and ask them, how can I help you succeed? And because they are motivated by themselves to do to achieve the goal for the unit.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So now we actually have time for one final question for all of our panelists. So feel free to, I guess we'll start with Mr. Delport. What is the one piece of advice you would give to someone with career aspirations in your field?
So I got a couple things here that I mentioned it in the chat. I would look up Simon Sinek, and he's got a thing called Start with Why. I know my why. I analyze my why. My why is to take care of technical engineering people. That's what I've done for decades. That's who I am. But start with why, and figure out where you want to be. And the other thing I would say right now is code. We produce openings for 500,000 software developers a year. We graduate 50,000 kids out of information technology groups, LAS, liberal arts and scientists, information technology, and we get 10,000 a year out of actual engineering programs that can do the math and write the code. We're in desperate need of this skill set. The reason I have to take such good care of my engineers is all of them, but especially the software guys, are 2 weeks from a new job. And if they don't like what they're doing, people quit. People don't quit jobs, they quit people, they quit managers. If they're not feeling taken care of, they're not feeling listened to, they're not engaged and encouraged, they'll leave. And software engineering is very, very difficult to come by. The salaries are going up. It's just, I'd say code. That's the number one thing right now. If you want a guaranteed job when you're out, I would code.
Yeah, I mentioned this already, follow your passion. I don't think enough can be said about that. But few other thoughts, right? Show up. I mean, showing up is 90% of success. Every email that comes to me, I will read it, scan it, and if it's not important, I'll delete it. But if there's something, even if there's a remote chance that I may be successful in that effort, I'll give it a try. You never know. I mean, you'd be surprised that some things that you think is a long shot might, come back to benefit you at some point. So keep up with that. And then the other thing is a couple more points. Don't fake something. Don't try to. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. Just be yourself. Be honest. And don't do things for the right reasons. You always have to figure out, everything that you do, is it good for the unit? Don't think about people, don't think about yourself. Is what I'm doing good for the unit, for the organization? And do it for the right reasons. And then if you do that, I think you'll get a lot of clarity. The one piece of advice that, like I still follow this, and I'll show you this piece of paper. I make a list every day of the things that need to be done. For this week, for this month. And, I get the greatest pleasure when I make this list and I scratch off things that I've done. Sometimes I forget to put things on my list and I've done it, but I still go write it and then scratch it off. That just kind of keeps you, number one, tells you what you need to do, for the next time period, whether it's a week or a month. But it also gives you satisfaction that you completed it. And so with that, let me pass it on to the others.
Man, you pretty much took what I was about to say right from under me, but great. What I was going to say is just try to be the best version of yourself. Once you get into, I guess, the corporate arena, you will see others excelling in leadership, and they bring different value to the organization. But you being yourself add value to the organization that somebody else might not be able to bring. So you want to make sure you know yourself, staying true to yourself, and continuing to grow and be the best version of yourself. So with doing that, you'll gain confidence, you'll have muscle memory, and all that will help you succeed within whatever career path that you're going to go under. So
I could kind of echo what the other folks said, and a lot of great advice, and also maybe add my own take that if I were to give a piece of advice, I would say to be someone that other people can count on, which is a great engineering skill, and also just good general advice. I know as a sort of introverted person who was struggling maybe with the coursework, I found that on a number of notable occasions in school, I ended up in leadership roles without looking for it, because the other people on the team realized that by following my lead, the project was going to get done on time, and just being someone that helps everyone stay on track, helped make sure everything got done on time, and so just being someone that everyone could count on made me someone that others looked to when there was a difficult challenge, and then that's something that has also really helped me in my day-to-day here in the professional field. I'm thinking of a time when I was working as a line engineer. I guess this is also echoing what Ed said about the sort of a bit of a complex that a lot of engineers come out of school with. I thought when I walked out on the manufacturing line, all the shop workers were going to be like, yes, the engineer's here, he's going to solve all the problems. And it was more like, oh, great, there's an engineer here. Now they're going to screw everything up. Can somebody please stop calling engineering? I remember
Embarrassingly true.
one time I walked in on a conversation with a couple of folks who were complaining about something an engineer had done, and just can't repeat the conversation. But I said, oh, sorry guys, here I am. And they're like, oh, no, we're not talking about you, you're good, you've proved your worth. And so I took that as a real compliment, that unlike some engineers, I was an engineer that was actually going to show up and help make things better rather than worse, and that I developed a good reputation for myself, not only within engineering but also on the shop floor. So I definitely would just kind of recommend that to anybody, that being a good person, good to other people, and know what's your responsibility, and do what you say you're going to do.
What do you call a person on the shop floor who has a cup of coffee?
What's that?
Engineer. That's what you said touches on something I always say. It's the person closest to it knows the best, right?
Yeah.
So if you're on the shop floor and somebody's assembling something or somebody's working on something, guess what? You may have designed it, but they know how it works.
Yep.
And you need to listen. So they will give you things, they will tell you things you never imagined.
I want to say thank you so very much to all of our panelists today. A very big thank you to our own Kiki Carmona for moderating our event today, to Career Services for helping make one of our goals a reality, even during a pandemic when we couldn't meet together on campus. Special thank you to Dr. Drozdov for all that you do to support us as student leaders, the rest of the leadership team, and of course, all the attendees. Don't forget, there are 2 more events in the series. If you've already attended the resume and interview prep. It's the same. We just wanted to provide it multiple times to allow more students to join. And again, for the the online branding and social media do's and don'ts, Monday and Tuesday of next week at 2 p.m. I think this wraps everything up. If you're interested in Engineering Club, please reach out to us on Presence or email Professor David Drozdoff. You should be able to find him in the directory. And if you're interested in utilizing any of the services of Career Services, please reach out. You can email any of the wonderful people who have been communicating the details of this event. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you so much for coming.
Thank you.